Hey guys, what's up? Mike here. And today I've got a bit of a different video for you. This one's going to be a theory slash discussion video on Seven Deadly Sins, the latest chapter, not just that chapter though, pretty much the whole thing, but mainly focused around this latest 205 chapter. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get right into it. But before I do that, I just want to add a brief disclaimer on what type of video this is. This is a theory video, but I don't have one concrete theory that I'll be sticking to. It's going to be a lot of theorizing about things that are going on and where people are and what their past has been, but I'm not going to have one concrete thing. Saying that though, I will have a couple good solid points that you might not have known before, so let's get into it. So to start, we're going to look at our current flashback and where our 10 Commandments are. This video is going to be based around the 10 Commandments, theorizing about their locations and their positions. So when we think about the 10 Commandments in this chapter, we look at Marsilia, Mont Speet, Derriere, Frodran, Gowther, and Galen. But you gotta wonder, is Frodran really part of the 10 Commandments? And that was something that I was wondering throughout this entire chapter. You gotta wonder, does he have his own commandment at this point? And if he does, what is it? And that's kind of what I'm going to start with on this video. So the first part of the video we'll be talking about Frodran. And Frodran at this point of the game, we don't really know a whole lot at this time period. But we do know that this is possibly before Gowther left the 10 Commandments, because we saw Gowther in our current chapter. And we know that when Gowther leaves or has his curse put on himself, he loses his memories and his entire sense of self, and then Frodran obtains his commandment. So we know that's how Frodran became one of the current 10 Commandments as of today. But there's a lot more to it. So this theory about Frodran can go one of two ways. In this flashback arc currently, he either has Gowther's commandment already because Gowther has lost his memory. And now that I've seen that may seem like a bit of a stretch, but if you think about it, it's kind of possible. And the other option is that Frodran never had a commandment and was never one of the 10 Commandments. And that's the one I'm going to be focusing on this video. Now, if we look back at our current chapter, this point can be supported when Frodran says to Mont Speet, and I quote, "Master, Mont Speet, I should take care of this." And at first I thought it may have been a mistranslation, but then I got thinking about it, and I wondered, Frodran was never one of the original 10 Commandments. And if we look back at the picture, which I'll try and put up on the screen, he's not actually in the photo. He's not actually in the photo of the original 10 Commandments, and I'll get into the detail about each one of those later. But it makes you wonder, so if he's not part of the 10 Commandments, and he called Mont Speet his master, does that mean he's below the 10 Commandments when it comes to power? And I'm going to get into that. So looking way back a couple chapters, back to 153, we have Frodran talking with Denzel and Death Pierce. And he's under their custody, and they're proud of themselves for keeping up with Frodran in a fight. They say, we might be able to take down one of the real 10 Commandments. And then Frodran comes back and he says, well, I hate to burst your bubble, but I'm not really one of the 10 Commandments. And I'll try and put it up on the screen for you here if I can. But that also proves that he was never really one of the 10 Commandments in the first place. And it supports that. That he might not even be as powerful as them. And the only time he was ever close to being a 10 Commandment was currently when he got a commandment from Gowther, and that wasn't even from the original Demon King himself. With a combination of all the points, like calling Mont Speet master, not being in the picture from before, even confessing himself that he was never one of the 10 Commandments in the first place, we can solidly assume, sort of, that he's a lower level demon, above the red and gray class, but really just below the 10 Commandments. And that's interesting. He's more of a subordinate than anything. So our main Frodran, he's not really that powerful and more important in the grand scheme of things. I mean, he had a good impact on the story, but in the overall impact of the 10 Commandments, he was never really a big factor there. So after going over Frodran's position within the demon ranks, we can move on to the rest of our 10 Commandments in their current location. We currently know 5 of them now, excluding Frodran. We had 6 with him, but we have 5 of them now. Excluding Frodran, because we're going to consider him not part of the original 10 Commandments because he wasn't in that picture. That's mainly what I'm going to be focusing on when it comes to that, because that's the closest to the timeline that we have now. And going on from that, the missing ones is the part of the problem that we're going to be worrying about in this video. We don't know where the rest of them are, and that's what I'm going to get into right now. That's the second half of this video. The first half is the fraudulent, and this will be the second half. So going back to the original photo of the 10 Commandments from before, I'm going to start off by naming the 10 that we know of in this photo, and we can see. So we have Meliodas, Estarossa, Monspeet, Derriere, Gowther, Galen, Murcilla, I think, and then Zeno and Aranac. Those are the two that Meliodas killed, but I'll get into that in a second. And then Kalmadios is the last one. After going over the total amount, we can cross off the 5 that I mentioned before. That's going to leave us with Meliodas, Zeno, Aranac, Estarossa, and Kalmadios. Those are the 5 that we are missing right now that have not appeared in 205. And I'm going to get into each one and where they are. So the first one, Meliodas, obviously he betrayed the Demon Clan. So we can kind of cross him out, and we know that at this point he might be replaced by Zeldaris in the future. Also, I know I'm using this photo a lot of the original 10 Commandments, but it is a good base on where to go from in this video. So I'm going to use it again here when I talk about Zeldaris and Meliodas' connection, because in the photo, Estarossa has a really, really young appearance. And that means that Zeldaris is probably either really young or not even alive yet. And I looked at his age, and I think he's just recently alive, so he's probably a kid at this point and will replace Meliodas in the future, but as of now they don't really have anybody to replace him, I'm assuming. So going off of Meliodas' replacement in Zeldaris, we can assume that he actually just left the 10 Commandments recently. Or at least we can kind of assume that. I mean, the time period, well, he's with the goddesses now, and they're coming to attack him, and they're just fresh to his betrayal. So I think that it's safe to say he just recently left the 10 Commandments, and that means that he just recently killed 2 of the 10 Commandments, because we were told before that he did kill Zeno and Aranac when he left. So you can cross those 2 on the top, the little one, floating one, and the big guy at the very, very middle top. Kind of big guy. You can cross them off because they were just killed by Meliodas. So after being able to cross out 8 of the total 10 original commandments, we're left with 2, Kalmadios and Estarossa. And this is an interesting combination. You can kind of theorize that Kalmadios is not there because he was recently defeated by Meliodas and Dolor, King, and Diane in the recent couple chapters. But Estarossa is the real oddball here. I'm really, really curious to see what happens. We know that back in this time, Estarossa really, really looked up to Meliodas, and I've got a feeling that that's part of why he's not here on the offense against the Goddess Clan. He knows Meliodas is there, and he really, really was admiring Meliodas when he was an evil, ruthless killer, and nobody could stop him, and he did whatever he wanted. But when he left the Demon Clan, I feel like Estarossa felt betrayed and is either somewhere sulking right now or just getting ready to fucking blow up. The main point of this video was to clear up who are the 10 Commandments right now currently in this flashback arc and who are the present 10 Commandments. I mean, that wasn't really the main point, but it is confusing, and especially with people constantly leaving and dying and certain members never even showing up and certain members going back in and out. It does get confusing, but the main point of this video was, like I said, to clear up who's who and where they are also in relation to the other characters currently. The ones that I crossed out earlier for not being there or having died, you can assume that they're about to get replaced actually by Dolor and Glonixia, if that's how you say them. And Grey Road will be added in the future as well. But besides that, that's all I got for this video, guys. I really hope you enjoy the theory that I've been making. I worked really hard on this. I know there wasn't a whole lot to blow your mind on, but it's just something to think about, really. And if you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate a like, a comment, a subscribe, especially a comment. And I hope you check out the next video. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.